Hi everyone, my name is Lorenza Lourenço and I am an archaeology student at the Federal University of Minas Gerais in Brazil. I am involved in the activities of the LITSEC Technology Lab, which is part of an archaeological experimentation program. Today I'm going to present two of the experimentations carried out by our research group. Firstly, it is important to point out that every experiment must be guided by a research problem. In order to do so, the analysis of the archaeological material must be considerably developed, so that the researcher has questions to be answered through experimentation. Raw materials, hammer, anvil, and stigmas involved in each of the stages must be at least similar to the ones in the archaeological collection. Also, it is important to emphasize that all experiments must be well documented and carried out in appropriate places to avoid the creation of fake archaeological sites. The goal here is to present two experiments. The first one regarding thermal treatment on amethyst quartz crystals, and the second related to knapping stigmas on hyaline quartz crystals. We also show the research questions involved in each of the experiments. Each of them provided important information on the peculiar behavior of these crystals, often neglected by archaeologists due to being wrongly considered a second choice by past groups. They also aim to contribute to the bibliography of this raw material, which is small when compared to others. The quality of the raw material, considering the presence of intrusions, internal cracks, different particle sizes, etc., always has an influence during knapping. The quartz crystals, while having hardness 7 on the Mohs scale, is a mineral with great fragility, which can be observed by its glassy aspect and accentuated crushing during knapping. It is a mineral formed in rocks at high temperatures, particularly regarding the hyaline quartz. The formation of its crystalline structure is perfect. This material does not have joints and produces conchoidal fractures that favor knapping. The traces of fires observed at the archaeological site of Ananas Cave in the state of Pará, north of Brazil, were associated in recent periods with ceramics, coals, amethyst crystals, citrine crystals, and minerals partly citrine, partly amethyst, called ametrines, sometimes with a pallescent appearance. According to geologists who work in the area, there are no deposits of citrine in the region. We also know that it is possible to transform amethyst into citrines through heating in ovens and fires. So we ask, how to explain the presence of citrine crystals within the fires? Are the traces found together the result of controlled thermal transformations? Here we show the temperatures needed to change the color of amethysts. These are the results of controlled experiments carried out in electric ovens. At temperatures of 400 to 550 degrees Celsius is necessary for a transformation to succeed. It is important to mention that the time of exposure to heat is also a crucial factor for such transformation. We demonstrate now two different procedures in this experiment. In one of them, amethysts were placed inside a ceramic vessel, positioned horizontally in a small and narrow pit, where the fire was started. A thick block of limestone was placed at the opening of the vessel. In this procedure, 5 sets of 3 pieces were placed inside the vessel before starting the fire. Each of them stayed in the vessel for a certain time, which varied between 5 and 9 hours. The temperatures of removal of the crystals also varied for the different sets, from 335 degrees Celsius to 499 degrees Celsius. During the procedure, embers were placed on top of the vessel, allowing the homogenization of heat. This procedure is depicted in the following video.
Daí eu falei que podia ser uma leção. 328, bem melhor, né? Porque se tiver. Peraí, 328. Nossa, chorando, chorando inglês. O negócio é que fica lá em cima, tá chorando aqui embaixo e ela tá assim aqui embaixo. Fiz assim, tô rotinho. Daí 4 letras dentro dela. Aqui, no fundo dentro. Dá uma rotinho de 4.
Viu aquele negocinho ali? Na conta mais, né? Lá passa ali, o volume muda tudo e solta na água.
Agora
Vaso
sim, depois.
comunicante, forte lá.
In the second procedure, a ceramic pot with its lid was placed over the fire. Inside it, three amethyst crystals were deposited directly in the bottom. Another small ceramic vessel, sealed with clay, containing three other crystals, was also deposited inside the pot. The amethysts were placed again before the fire started and were exposed to heat for 9 hours, reaching a maximum temperature of 470 degrees Celsius. Temperatures in both procedures were monitored every 30 minutes, rising and falling slowly, making it possible the creation of a control chart. Here we see some results and stigmas from the first procedure. We managed to achieve a slight yellowish color in some pieces, indicated by a red arrow. Green arrows indicate potlets, which are results of thermal damage. Other results of thermal damage are lines of internal cracks, opaque appearance, waxy shine, and fragmentation in oblique breaks in longitudinal slices, as we can see in the pictures. In the second procedure, we can see that many sigmas are the same. Amethysts became, for the most part, milky and some places slightly yellow. However, we managed to achieve for some of the crystals a stronger yellow color. The image in the lower right corner refers to an archaeological flake with a much stronger yellow color than the ones that we obtained with our experiment, and it does not have stigmas of thermal damage, such as cracks and breaks. Although our thermal transformation was not totally successful, the experiment contributed to show that it is possible to transform amethysts into citrines inside and outside ceramic vessels through the heat of fires, and to understand the stigmas of thermal damage in quartz crystals, indicated by waxy shine, potlet fractures, which sometimes do not come off, craquelures, diagonal cracks, and other fractures. And finally, our second experiment, motivated by a question that arose during the material analysis of the archaeological site Bibocas 2 in the state of Minas Gerais in central Brazil. This experiment aims to refine knowledge about the stigmas of percussion on an anvil. We are interested in the stigmas resulting from two different techniques, the straight bipolar percussion and the oblique bipolar percussion, that can have a small axis deviation. Often, some stigmas of percussion on anvil can be confused with the ones of direct percussion with hard stone hammer. This can happen due to a small deviation of the axis of the piece to be knapped at the moment of knapping in the percussion on an anvil. Percussion on an anvil for formation of fractures and split is a recognized technique and it is mentioned in several studies on lithic industries in Europe, North America, and Brazil. Sandstone and quartzite hammers and a sandstone anvil were used in this experiment. These are abundant raw materials in the region of the site Bibocas 2. The stigmas on anvils and hammers are usually small domes of raw material loss. This type of knapping requires a hammer with a flat area and a percussion with an angle of 90 degrees in relation to the quartz crystal that will be fragmented at the moment of impact. All this results in a crushed striking platform and a crushed counter-strike platform, as we can see here and here. a linear butt, and in the leftmost picture, an accidental break. See here. We can also have, in this case, waves coming from both ends. The space in which they propagate has to do with the hardness of the hammer and the relative softness of the anvil. The force applied in the striking platform is received at the same time by both edges of the piece, but the softness of the soft stone anvil makes it absorb some of the force and take a short time to release it. This is why we have different wavelengths, and the ones coming from the end that is in contact with the anvil are smaller. We also have other crashes, accidents, and a crushing in the lower face close to the impact point that reflects the fracture initialization. Here we have an example of when the fracture initialization is made with a 90-degree angle. It is shown by the crushing pointed by the green arrow, but in the next moment the piece is deviated from its 90-degree axis. In this case, it is possible that only waves coming from one direction are formed, as we can see in the leftmost picture. Other stigmas may appear, such as the presence of a bulb and a hurt skull, and may therefore be confused with the stigmas of direct percussion with hard stone hammer, except when the lower face close to the impact point is crushed. So now let's move to our conclusions. Some raw materials, such as silicite and flint, when exposed to heat, may experience changes in their internal structures. But heating amethyst crystals does not change its perfect crystalline structure. So, the thermal treatment is most likely related to changes in the crystal's color, perhaps the yellow one that was intended by past groups. Despite not having achieved the desired color, our first experiment allowed us to observe the aspects of thermal damage stigmas in quartz, which are not very well described in literature. For example, waxy shine, pot lid fractures, diagonal fractures, and internal fractures. The second experiment indicated that in the same piece may be present stigmas from two types of technique: percussion on an anvil and direct percussion with hardstone hammer. In fact, if at the moment right after the striker hits the striking platform, the napper slightly inclines the piece, stigmas from two techniques can be formed. The fracture initialization can start in split and due to the inclination end in a conchoidal fracture. Presenting as stigmas, striking platform and counter-strike platform commonly crushed. Crush on the lower face near the impact point, see here, hinged flakes and breaks. When there is a deviation from the axis, we can also find hurt cones and bulbs. We thank all those involved in the experiments and we hope that our results can contribute to future analysis on quartz crystals. Thank you very much.